Konnichiwa.
Welcome to the Jandals in Japan podcast.
Kia ora, Catherine. How's it going?
Konnichiwa, Jane. Great.
Yay, we're
Great,
here.
great.
It's so beautiful here in Japan at the moment, isn't it?
It's stunning. I don't know what it is, but I'm really enjoying the autumn leaves this year more than any time. I don't know what it is, but it feels fresh and new, and I don't know, maybe it's the opening of the borders or more people around and about. Just feels different. There's more vigor, and I'm just loving this season.
There's a lot going on, a lot of events happening. People are arriving in Japan. Things are perking up. It's
For
great
sure.
to see. Yes, my mum is here. My mum made it to
Yay.
Japan. We had a great time hanging out in Tokyo. Spent 12 hours in Disneyland Marathon.
You survived Disneyland.
I did,
Yay.
and I wore Minnie Mouse ears all day long and
There you
escaped
go, that's
reality
why.
for a bit. It was very yasashi, as we will talk a little bit more about today in our episode, that softness that Japanese people are looking for, that escape from the hard edges of their daily life, which
Right.
life in Japan can be a little bit like. So, yes, I definitely noticed that because everyone had their Mickey Mouse ears on. Everyone. All
Right,
of the
I'm going to
people
buy
were
some next time I go there. I
can't
want Mickey
not
Mouse
do it.
ears. Yes.
I tell you, I'm not interested in wearing Mickey Mouse ears. Not because I don't think they're cool. I just don't want to. But after about an hour, I was like, no, we have to go and buy something. Come on. And we all went and got the most ridiculous ones we could find.
Brilliant.
And I thoroughly enjoyed wearing that all day. So
Well, it was very funny. You sent me a photograph and I went, Jane in Minnie Mouse ears.
Minnie
Yay,
Mouse,
Jane,
yes,
you're getting
a hat,
into it.
Minnie Mouse hat,
Very
yes, on my
good.
head, yes, all day long.
And it had another benefit, did it not? Later in the day when it
Yeah.
started to get a bit cooler.
Yes, it was a bit chilly in the evening, so that's why I went with that one. But yes, looking
Wow.
for that softness, yasashi, that is so important to Japanese people from the hardness of their daily lives. Yes.
And it makes a lot of sense when you think about all the things that we do to escape that daily life, like go on trips to onsen, the hot pools, and even just to get away for a little bit and come back and refresh in the greenery and come back. You can see why that's really a big part of Japanese culture, and we get into that as well, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I did a hotel stay last week, just being in a hotel in the center of Tokyo when it wasn't me having to make my own bed. I didn't do that. I had coffee on hand. I had bath salts, a beautiful bathrobe, things like that just make that little bit of yasashi, friendliness, kindness, gentleness to yourself as well is really wonderful. And I really enjoyed doing that. And that was also a time when I heard a little story about our Jandals getting together. And I just love how our community here is growing, Jane, with this podcast and the people who are meeting each other. And they're building on the strengths of others who've spoken on the podcast. Like literally, you've got a Jandal reaching out to another Jandal, and they are now helping with the network they have that one particular Jandal had that the other didn't know about. And wow, bang, collaboration has started. So something I maybe didn't envisage for the podcast. I'm not sure where you were, but that we've got Jandals getting together with Jandals to make beautiful business and relationships together. It's just phenomenal.
We might even have like a Jandal's wedding or a Jandal baby in the future. Who knows? Where it could
Wow.
go. That'd
Jandal
be-
wedding or
Jandal
baby.
wedding. Yeah.
Gosh.
To our podcast. Yeah.
Well, if they're going to have a baby, then they should definitely be using the products that are supplied by, good lead there, Jane, the products supplied by the company who is on our podcast today, ecostore. We've been waiting for ecostore to come along, and we really thank NZ Story Group for the marvellous introduction. And we're so pleased to have Hamish and Alice on the show today. Hamish is ecostore's export manager, and Alice Ueno Lynch is not only the Japan assistant, she's a bridge builder between East and West. These two who are both working together in New Zealand for ecostore and working very closely with Japan. And we love this story, Jane, don't we?
Great. Loads of amazing anecdotes of what they've done, wild things that have happened, and how they've overcome challenges to become one of the leading refill retailers in Japan, or the leading refill retailers in Japan. That is an amazing achievement. Well done.
Yay.
So let's hear it from Hamish and Alice. Kia ora, Hamish and Alice. Welcome to Jandals in Japan. Great to have you on the show today.
Thank
Kia
you.
ora. Konnichiwa.
Konnichiwa. Welcome.
Kia ora.
So we're going to start with a warm-up question today. You have just arrived in Japan. What is the first thing on your to-do list, Alice?
I would probably be at the airport, and I think Narita Airport has like a mini stop convenience store,
Yeah.
and they sell very good sort of like pasta dishes that you can microwave. Last time I went, they had like a creamy mushroom one. I very clearly remember because I bought it at night. I took it back to the hotel. And so I'll be popping into mini stop for some food and beverages, and then I'll be
Awesome.
probably off to some kind of airport hotel. That's usually my gig.
So you're all about the
once
food?
Right.
Yeah.
food and drinks.
Awesome. How about you, Hamish? What would be at the top of your to-do list when you hit the ground
I love
in
that
Japan?
Alice said the convenience store. Invariably, when I arrive in Japan, it's summer, it's hot, it's so humid. And I love the 7-Eleven. You go in there and there's just everything available. It's like its own little world. It's got its fax machine, but above all, it has its ice cold coffee and those beautiful
Yes.
Japanese high quality aluminium cans. So that'll cool me down.
Wow.
Iced coffee. Catherine, if you got to New Zealand,
Oh,
what was the top of your list? When you hit the ground in New Zealand, what would you
Well,
do first?
I always go to Christchurch, but I go through Auckland, and I love that walk from Auckland Airport, following the green arrow over to domestic. And there's this silver caravan outside Auckland International that sells coffees. And it's retro. It's sort of like pieced
Airstream.
together kind of caravan. And I
an
go
Airstream.
there. I go there and I get my flat white and I just go, right, I'm having it.
I'm getting
And I'll
tingles
usually take a
thinking about
selfie there, and that's what I do first, is a flat white as soon as I'm off the plane.
Go home.
Home!
Well, I usually choose to fly into Christchurch, get my flat white, and walk outside and try to find a view of the mountains from Christchurch. So there you go.
Nice.
Yeah. It's all about the coffee.
It sure is. Oh my goodness, we're so happy to have you guys on the show today from ecostore. Hamish, you're doing all the stuff that's exporting, right? You're export manager. And Alice,
right.
you're helping as the Japan assistant. And we're just so thrilled to have you here today. Thank you very much for saying yes.
Pleasure. It's great to be here. We've been, big followers of your podcast. I've been delving into it over the last couple of weeks, and really enjoyed the insights that you're giving into Kiwis, Jandals in Japan. People doing
Good.
business there. It's wonderful.
Who have you liked listening to?
I really enjoyed Mayu Suzuki's story. That was an absolutely beautiful one. I really enjoyed that it was a tearjerker for you guys at the end of that show. Most recently, I've just listened to Jason from Cookie Time.
So we'll be putting your bios in the show notes, but tell us a little bit about yourselves, Hamish and Alice. Either can go first, no order required here, just, about your background and how you came to be with ecostore.
I've been with ecostore for about 6 years now. I joined the company in 2016 in the role of export manager, and I look after a range of different countries, predominantly in Asia. We export to around 15 countries around the world. Japan is a really significant market for us. We've got a beautiful business up there, but I manage that out of New Zealand. We have a team of around 10 people in Tokyo, but I also handle a number of other different countries from Taiwan, Korea, right through East and Southeast Asia as well, and a little bit of business in Europe.
How about you, Alice?
I joined the company in 2018, and I only do a couple of days there a week, but I support Hamish in his role as, particularly in Japan, so I'm a Japan export assistant. And originally I came in as sort of an interpreting role, but over the years it's evolved and transformed, and I've expanded to become more of a cultural bridge beyond just kind of, business strategies and all that stuff. A much more well-rounded role, and I'm really, really enjoying myself at ecostore. I think it has a lot to offer the world from this tiny little country, so I'm really enjoying my journey. And thank you so much for having both of us today.
So would you like to tell us a little bit about how ecostore ended up in Japan? How did that happen?
Absolutely. It's been quite a journey for ecostore getting to Japan. We'd long known that there was an interesting market for ecostore there. There'd been a lot of inquiries that had come in from consumers through the early tens and teens. And we'd done a bit of research. We'd engaged with universities, with MBA programs. Some of them been on tours up to Japan at the University of Auckland. And we knew that there was a strong market, a great opportunity for us there. And we'd had a few different fits and starts trying to find different partners. And it was quite challenging for us to cut through all of the different layers and find the right partner. And this went on over a number of years. This is a really fascinating story to me. This was before I arrived at the company, but a great story for always taking that cold call or taking the opportunity as it comes in and often might slide to the bottom of one's inbox. And we were approached by a woman from Nelson, who was a Japanese housewife, mother of 3 children, living in New Zealand. And she approached ecostore and said that she wanted to introduce us to some friends and connections of hers. She was a passionate user of our laundry products, our household products, the baby products, etc., and introduced us to who are now our joint venture partners in Japan. And the rest is history. So that was
Wow.
7 or 8 years ago.
Wow.
That's right.
I just got
That's right.
goosebumps.
Me too. Oh, my goodness.
God, that is amazing.
Yeah, it's a really cool story. And look, Yuri Hendrickson is her name. We owe her a great deal. She's become a great friend of the business, a great friend of ours personally, and has been, a really integral part of the formation of ecostore in Japan. So it's a really cool story. So yeah, take that cold call, respond to that email. You never know what's going to happen and what relationship can come out of it.
Oh
That's
my
so
God.
exciting. I just got a cold call today. So I'm going to work on that inspiration from you and go back and reply to that person. Thank you for that. That's amazing that some relationship and long standing and you find your partner from something like that. Never underestimate. Wow.
Yes. Wow.
That's right. So we'd done homework beforehand and we knew that there was interest. The Japanese really loved our product. We felt that there was a strong connection between the values of ecostore, our aesthetic as a brand, the simplicity, our offering of sustainability. There's always opportunities in Japan for the new, for the different, for the quirky, for the foreign. And this gave us that bedrock. But then when we had the introduction to and the partnership with who became our joint venture partners, yeah, it really took off from there. So it was a wonderful phone call, a wonderful introduction.
That's brilliant.
Shout out to Yuri. Yeah, if you're listening.
I want to give Yuri a quick shout out as well because, if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have my role either. And when I met her, she basically kind of handed the torch to me and said, I want you to take on the future of ecostore as being a person that connects New Zealand and Japan. So I really owe everything to Yuri as well. So if you're listening, thank you.
Wow. I want to meet Yuri.
Yeah, we need to meet Yuri.
Wow.
Sounds like your next podcast guest. No, it's a wonderful story. I mean, we've had this great relationship with Yuri, with our partners in Japan, and then now with Alice working for us. And I suppose it does highlight one of the things that is really useful to talk to for anybody that's exporting or doing business in Japan is just the importance of having those cultural communications. Somebody that can help you within your business to understand what's going on in market, that can understand the language, but more pertinently, the culture. The role that Alice does for us at the moment is a lot around interpreting, but even more so around understanding all the nuance of what is being said by what is not being said. So it's super important. That's why we have Alice here today and Yuri beforehand, that we have a deeper understanding of what's going on.
Alice, I'd love to know if you can tell us about an example of when you were like watching people talking past each other and going, oh my God, the New Zealanders think this and the Japanese people think this. Has that happened to you? You can see that?
I feel like it's always happening, to be
Right.
honest. We try to keep our communications consistent with Japan, just so we're always on the same page and we're working as one brand as opposed to one that's separate in New Zealand and Japan. But yeah, there are always sort of cultural differences that come to play that one of the simplest things would be just, Kiwi slang that, Hamish uses is very, very hard to interpret sometimes. I remember when Hamish was just, saying, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going, I have no idea how to say that in Japanese, because you can't straight translate that because then it doesn't mean anything. But also, what's a Japanese proverb that can mean the same thing? So I try to do my best to sit between those two, but sometimes there are certain words or certain ideas in Japan that can't be directly reflected into New Zealand, and vice versa. So often you kind of have to go, they've just said some slang and it's supposed to be funny, please laugh. And then they'll go, ha, 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 ha.
It's supposed to be funny, please laugh.
So it's we try to keep it light in that way as well. You can't force kind of different cultures on each other. You have to be very, very understanding of each other. And if you can't completely, come to an understanding, you just have to, communicate those differences and then just go, okay, I think it's time to move on, and, keep it lighthearted and keep it nice. Yeah.
Very good. My brain is going to be searching for the Japanese term for where we don't need to reinvent the wheel. What
Let us
might
know
that
when
be?
you come across that.
Yeah, Catherine, any ideas? We don't need to
I
reinvent
can't think
the
on the
wheel?
spot, and I know there'll be a few people going, oh, come on, I know that. But
Yeah.
let's figure it out. I would love to find that out. And if anyone is listening and they know, give us a shout out. We
Yeah,
want to
it'd be
know.
something really random, like when someone says, I'm so busy, I need the cat's hand, or I need to borrow the cat's hand, or something like that. That's the Japanese translation of I'm
Yes,
so
the
busy,
cat's
right?
hand, yeah.
Oh, that
It'll be
one.
something really
Yeah,
random.
I'm so busy.
yeah.
I need the hand of the
cat's
cat
hand.
to help me.
Hand
Yeah.
of the cat.
Yeah.
Very good. I'll tuck that one up the sleeve then.
Yes, see if it
There's
lands.
another one up my sleeve.
Yeah.
Too hard. I give up.
Yeah. Yeah. So please talk without using lots of these kinds of idiomatic expressions. Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah, to remember.
Absolutely. I tend to do that a lot. So poor Alice does have to cut through quite a bit of Kiwi idiom, a lot of slang, a lot spoken too quickly. She's filling in some gaps. Another one that strikes me is we were just talking about it the other day, weren't we, Alice? We'd recently developed a new product that we thought would be really good for Japan, and we launched it here in New Zealand, and we put on the front label an image that came out of Japan, and it was an origami crane, and we'd shared it with the Japanese team, and they were really taken aback that we'd do this for them and make something that we thought would work in Japan. And we actually got it completely wrong. We got the context of it totally incorrect, and launched it here in New Zealand and other places, and still haven't in Japan. And it was one of those moments of sort of cultural misinterpretation, the power of an image in the wrong direction. And it talks also to I guess the unspoken in Japan. They're not so keen to tell you that you've made a poor call or that wouldn't work for them. They don't want to go out of their way to give you the bad news like that. That's right. And it was a really interesting insight that we probably should have been a lot more direct as to whether something would or wouldn't work for them needing a yes/no answer. And it was an opportunity that we actually missed to read between the lines, wasn't it, Alice?
If I can expand on that example, it was a white origami crane. And I guess in New Zealand, we looked at it and went, it's the white, symbolizes a type of purity or a simplicity. And origami is very known for being quite delicate. That's associated, in New Zealand. But when you give it to Japan, they kind of went, oh, white cranes are sort of associated with something a little bit sadder than that. It's not as much of a positive or inspirational symbol. Maybe colorful ones are, but that's not so much.
Yeah.
And so I think we like it in New Zealand because I guess it kind of works the way ecostore works in Japan. Ecostore is sort of international and it's foreign, so that's why it works in Japan. But then when you try to localize it too much, I think the familiarity just sort of off-puts them a little bit. They want something that is completely non-Japanese, and for us, having something Japanese on it is international from a New Zealand perspective. Obviously, there was a lot that got lost in translation, and you just have to adapt to those needs that we all want and require.
Wow, what a fantastic example of how something might work in New Zealand and it doesn't work in Japan, right? Oh my goodness. and you think it's going to
Maybe we can
work.
offer prize to any of the listeners that can pick the product and identify it. I don't think we've actually named it here, have we? We've only
No,
mentioned
we haven't.
That's right.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm
So,
going to
okay,
go
prize to a
Google.
Japanese listener if they can identify the product.
There you go.
Oh my goodness, what a fantastic example. Thank you for sharing that. That's brilliant.
It's
Yeah.
priceless. Priceless,
Priceless.
honestly. Yeah, to hear that. So tell us a little bit more about this amazing journey to come into Japan, where you're at now, a bit more about the partner that you connected with. We'd love to hear some more about that.
Sure. So it's a little bit of an unusual relationship in that they're not a conventional distribution partner as many brands exporting into other countries would have. Interestingly, our partner in Japan they're a fashion house. They're amazing retailers. They own a range of beautiful Japanese female-focused fashion brands. And they also have a wonderful retail presence in natural cosmetics, organic food and snacks. They own the Beeple and Cosme Kitchen chains in Japan. They have really, really good insights into that consumer in Japan. They've been a big part of building that category over the last 5-10 years in Japan. And so that part of their business was a really natural fit for ecostore. So a lot of our early consumers were customers of those channels there. The name of the company is MASH Holdings. And we struck up a relationship with them. MASH distributed our products for several years. And over that time, we worked on forming a joint venture in Japan. And we signed that in 2017, which was a great occasion for ecostore. It was the first that we had established in an offshore market. And that business has been going for 6. We're in our 7th year at the moment in Japan. So it's come a long way. As business in Japan is, it can be a slow start. There's a lot to establish, but we were absolutely blown away by the attention to retail detail that our friends at MASH applied to the Japanese consumer. And one of the first things that they did, relatively unbeknownst to us, was they set up a retail store, a flagship store in Ebisu Station in Tokyo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And that's still going strong today. It became a real focal point for ecostore in Japan. And they did such a beautiful job of establishing that based on what they'd seen from our own flagship store in Freeman's Bay in Auckland. And they took that and upgraded and updated it and Japanified it and made it just absolutely beautifully on point for the retail experience for a Japanese consumer, a Japanese housewife. It's a really, really lovely experience today. You go there and it's like being in a beautiful home with the laundry and the kitchen and the bathroom and the running water and the taps and the dishwasher under the sink and so on. And the attention to detail of the staff there, they're just fantastic. Everything is beautiful service and wonderful presentation. And there's a lot that we've learned from how they do things and something that we'd love to roll out further across the region going forward. So
Wow.
our masters
Really
of the
is.
retail experience.
It is a beautiful, beautiful store. And when I go
We've
past,
been there.
yeah,
Wonderful.
when I go past, I'm like, I feel very serene. That's the word
Yes.
coming to me. And I stand there and I think, I want to do washing. I want to do the dishes. You know, I feel, and I
Wow.
don't like doing dishes, but I feel like I want to do them when I'm in that area, in that environment. And it's a really crazy thing to happen in the
Inspirational.
middle of Ebisu Station where people are walking past, going and doing their thing. It's this sort of serenity little venue. And I love it. I love it. Really do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's incredible that you can do that with household tasks, isn't it? It's something that as New Zealanders, we think of doing the laundry, doing the dishes as a bit of a chore, but it's wonderful that they have created that feeling or that sensation of it in the store. But I think it also speaks to the importance of some of those things in Japanese household life. It's been an incredible thing for us as a business just to learn how central things like doing the laundry are to the Japanese household, how frequently consumers there will wash their clothing, how they will almost always soften their clothing, how children will go to bed in a fresh pair of pajamas every night, how the uniforms are freshly laundered every day. I mean, it's remarkable the amount of time that must take. It's so different to our experience in New Zealand here of doing these chores. But the store does bring that part of Japanese culture to light to some extent.
Amazing observation. Very, very true. The mountain of laundry I have in front of my washing machine testifies to that. But yes, you're right. I think the average Japanese family washes a lot more things more often, and they're actually often made of quick drying materials, so you can hang them up overnight and they're dry in the morning, and kids go to school with their fresh uniform on in the morning, etc. Yeah, and also if you spend any time in Japan watching TV, you will see a lot of time and effort put into teaching people how to do their housework to a standard you would not believe. I don't think there's any TV shows in New Zealand teaching you how to hang up your laundry or how
No.
to clean your drains more effectively to A++ level. Like, get top of the class for your housekeeping.
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
watch those programs, Jane. They're
Yeah.
so interesting, and Japan has lots of
Fascinating.
tips and tricks how to make everything cleaner and more sparkly and make it easier. I
And
love
fold
them.
it properly so that,
Yeah.
blah, blah. Yeah. Oh my God. Get a
Marie
degree
Kondo is a god.
degree in housekeeping.
They even had
Right.
one the other day where how do you keep wrinkles out of t-shirts? And they brought the t-shirt that was wet out of the washing machine, shook it, but then folded it and let it sit. And apparently, if you put 3 or 4 t-shirts on top of each other, that weight, while it's still wet, can take away the creases. And then she reopened them up
Wow.
again, and they were like, "Oh, the creases have gone." It was incredible.
Wow, this is game changing. We're even learning here.
Yeah. Right.
Magic.
Yeah. Housekeeping is a real, it's a full-time job in Japan. For many people, take it to the next level.
Which
Wow.
also explains
Absolutely.
why, a typical Japanese housewife will wear their apron all day. They'll go to the supermarket wearing their apron, right, Jane? They'll answer the door to the takyubin, the delivery
They're at
guy,
work.
in
They've got their
they're at work,
uniform on.
the whole thing. That's their uniform. So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Look, one of the things that Abisu store set up for us was our first refill station in Japan. And that's been something that has really taken off in Japan over our whole time in the market. And it's been a wonderful opportunity for Japanese consumers to experience something that we've done in New Zealand for a long time, offering consumers the ability to bring their bottles back, refill them there, and save on the packaging. And over time, this has come to be known as quite a key feature of our brand in Japan. It's really grown over the last 4 years, particularly. We now have over 60 refill points around Japan through
Really?
much of
Really?
through much of the Cosmic Kitchen and Beeple network, but increasingly through other stores, zero waste stores, some department stores around Japan. It's great to see that the Japanese consumer, in a small way, is picking up this tradition that's been a part of how we retail to some degree in New Zealand, and over the last couple of years, it's really taking off. So, yeah, we're really excited to see that. And one of the things that we loved was that they would go upstairs to
Is
buy
that
the
what
empty
it is?
bottle.
Oh,
Muji. Go
Muji.
upstairs to
Muji.
Muji.
Ah, Muji.
That's right.
Muji.
That's right. They
They
would go
sell a lot
upstairs
of
to
nice bottles
Muji.
there.
These beautiful little bottles that they would purchase up there. The Japanese consumer was not prepared to make the full purchase at our shop. They wanted to buy a little one and then come downstairs, refill it, take it home, decide whether they liked it or not, and then come back the next day and purchase the full size. So, yeah, great little insight to the attention that they would pay to the considered purchases that they're making.
Try before you buy.
That's right.
One of our colleagues in Japan, was saying that because the refill stations are growing in Japan, we also have a couple of them in the Natural Lawson's, which is a convenience store,
Yeah.
and she was telling us that ecostore is getting a bit of a reputation, a positive reputation of being sort of that ecostore, the brand that does all the refills, because I think it's becoming more exposed and people are running into them now. So she was saying that some other companies are trying to get on the refill bandwagon, which is something that we always want to encourage because it's all about plastic reduction. But she said that ecostore is truly marking or leading the way in Japan, and that's really,
Wow.
really exciting. It's an exciting space to watch, I think.
Yeah. I haven't noticed any other brands refilling their stuff.
No, I
wonder who that could
refill
be.
water. I know at Muji they have a water station and they sell water containers, and you can actually go in with any water container. So I refill water there, and there's an app you can calculate and show how much plastic you've saved, by the water you've refilled. So I do that at Muji, but I don't know outside of water. I haven't seen refill stations for any other products, aside from you guys. You're saying that you are leading in Japan amongst all brands, that ecostore is the one doing the refill station ahead of other brands.
Let's name it and claim it.
That sounds about right.
I'm lingering on that. That's brilliant.
We'd be delighted to see this roll out further. It's a big part of who we are and our offering to consumer. That's innovation and how you purchase and consume products. And packaging's such a big thing in Japan, for better or for worse. And we've got these beautiful bottles that have been made out of sugar plastic and recycled plastic, and there's nothing better than the one that you already own. Reuse it, take it back, and fill it up again. So it's really exciting to see this being picked up in Japan.
Do you think that in Japan, maybe one of the hard things to take up is, how do we do it? How do we do what you guys are doing? We don't know how to. Maybe there's a chance there to help with consulting or instruction or education for other brands and how they can do this and build the world of refill stations in Japan. Could that be a possibility?
Oh, it sure could. Yeah, collaboration, partnerships for the goals, right? SDG 17 others.
Yeah. I think Japan always
Absolutely.
used to have a strong refill culture in the olden days. Like you would take your container to the tofu shop and pick up your tofu and take your beer empties back and get your fresh beers and all of that. So, yeah, surely we can come back to a little bit more of that in the future here in Japan.
Absolutely. Look, I think it's one of the things that, as a New Zealander, when you go to Japan, you're often quite shocked at the amount of packaging and plastic, particularly everywhere. And there's a lot to it. There's so much convenience built into that packaging, so much hygiene, etc. And these are things that are so top of mind for Japanese consumers. But as a Kiwi, you do feel a little averse to it. And so the opportunity to bring that to Japan and encourage refill is something that, we're really excited about. And it's great to see people picking it up.
So tell us about your initial entry to Japan, some of the challenges that you've had.
One of the big things that we encountered was the incredible attention to detail that one needs to pay to product quality and execution in the market. Japanese standards really are another cut above what one would expect in the New Zealand market here. Very different consumer, very different expectations. And we really did need to make a number of changes to how we produce our products and the consistency and the rework of products as it went into the market in Japan. And so this became a big thing for both ourselves, manufacturing in New Zealand, and for our team in market, just to make sure that we were hitting 100% quality as things were going onto the shelf there. I often seem to think that New Zealand is actually quite a hard place to export out of, given this relative consumer expectation. The difference between a pack and save in Kilburnie versus, say, a department store in Japan, and the consumer that's shopping there and their expectations of product is just worlds apart.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to put the same product on shelf, that can introduce quite a challenge, quite a difficulty into a manufacturing business. And just given that higher level of expectation in Japan, it does make New Zealand a difficult place to export out of. So that's been something we've learned a huge amount on the journey. And, we're talking about really simple things here: consistency of label application and adhering to a specification and communicating changes and so on. These are the real nuts and bolts of producing products, but having to do it at such a high standard and such a consistent Japanese standard has been a great learning curve for our business. And we're very fortunate that we've really started to achieve some of those standards, and it sets us up as a manufacturer to do business better in other parts of the world as well. So that's been a great learning for us. And I would suggest to anybody getting into the market that, you really understand that as you go in, understand that challenge, and embrace it as a business. It can be hard, but it has really positive upsides for you. Another aspect to the attention to detail concept of Japan is the importance of, the cold hard facts about your brand, about performance, about claims, about awards that you've won. Being Ichiban it's just so important. Even if it might not feel relevant to you in New Zealand or elsewhere, it's super important to a consumer in Japan. that you might have the number one selling bar soap or shampoo bar or bottle of dish liquid in the country, or to be seen as the leading sustainable brand by consumers. This has real value to consumers in Japan, and it's something that your team will shout out at point of sale and online. It's really valuable. I was told once of a story from somebody who released a product in Japan, and they were struggling to get traction in the market, and they went and listed it in America on Rakuten USA, which is basically, or was at the time, a non-event in America. Nobody was buying products there, but it became the number one product in that category in the USA. And then they brought that back to Japan, and they had number one Ichiban product in the USA on Rakuten, and a great big sticker on their product in Japan. And it really helped them take off, to see some success with it. So, never underestimate the importance of being able to show that you are successful. You've won awards, that you are Ichiban somewhere in something.
I don't know if the Mondo selection does that have...
There we go. That's another great example.
Selection?
Does that still exist?
I think surely it does. Like I can't say I've noticed it as much, but it used to be like, oh, this is the Mondo selection product, I'll buy that. The awards for food. It's
really been something that that we've had to work hard at, is to find those little pockets for our Japanese consumers, to have your products tested, to have a performance claim, something that can be talked about, that can just show efficacy or results in the Japanese market. And it's generally well above and beyond what we would think would be relevant in our little corner of the world here. But it's a remarkable insight into that Japanese consumer, just the importance of being able to shout that out in Japan, to clamber above the crowd.
Yeah, and it is amazing, the numerical approach that you're talking about and hard data. And your team in Japan, is that who's helping you with this, find this information and help you to know that that's what you're meant to be doing?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we have a wonderful team there of sales and marketing and all sorts of different functions in our Tokyo office. But it's often some of the little questions and nuggets that come out of our marketing team, particularly the product team. And they're asking whether we can validate X or Y claim that they would like to make. And sometimes they're just so off the wall. But when you dig into what's come underneath it, it really does give you an insight into that Japanese consumer culture and what's important to them. And we do our best to accommodate it. And we've got a wonderful R&D team in New Zealand who are used to accommodating these requests and getting to the bottom of them. But what they really appreciate, and it's something that we've built up this beautiful mutual respect over the years between our R&D team in New Zealand and our team in Japan, is just this attention to detail, that our team want things to be so thorough in Japan. They aren't prepared to cut a corner or make a false claim. And it works really well with a lot of those values that sit within our business. And we've got a great working relationship between these parts of our New Zealand business and the Japanese one. So that's wonderful.
Yeah, shout out to the team in Japan.
Absolutely. Yes. I Sasako Momo, is our CEO, Mukobayashi-san Hiro. He's been with us since day dot. And we look forward to welcoming him and our shareholder, Kondo-san, down to New Zealand very shortly for our first meeting face-to-face as a business in New Zealand since COVID, which is, really exciting.
Nice.
Absolutely. And there's a range of other people that have worked with us over the years, that do work with us in shared functions with our JV partner, Mash Beauty Lab particularly, and a wonderful range of sales team that are out on the road, hitting all the retail accounts around Japan. So there's a really hardworking group of people up in the ecostore Japan office that we're super proud of, and all of the success that we've had up there has absolutely been thanks to them.
And then you would have got round to even more depth into localizing your brand here. How did you go about doing that?
We've been exporting, made in New Zealand products with New Zealand labeling on them around the world for some time. And in Japan, as with other markets, we have a lot of additional work being done on those products to make them compliant from a regulatory perspective, translating ingredients, the same kind of thing that happens in any international product going into most markets overseas. But we got to a point where, that worked for us for a while, but it was not having Japanese brand information, selling points, etc., on the back of pack was holding us back. And we decided to to launch a range of products that would enable us to better compete on shelf in retailers in Japan. So smaller format products, a group of products that we called our 18, those that were going to give us the step change to list in a much wider range of retail accounts in Japan. And we went through this, quite lengthy process of developing back of pack messaging, brand information, all localized in Japanese. And it was a really big project, involved a lot of time from our side and from our Japanese team in Tokyo's, but hugely rewarding project in that, the benefits that we hope to achieve from it, product listings and sell through on shelf really materialized. So we have a wonderful range now of dish liquids, laundry liquids, fabric softeners, delicate wash, oral care products. They're all sold in Japanese on Japanese retail shelves. So that was a really successful project and one that it took us, I think, 4 or 5 years to get to, but it did unlock a lot of success with consumers when we did get there. The one point where it was the aha moment for the business was when we documented what was going on in market with a tube of toothpaste. So in order for that to be compliant with the consumer to have confidence in it, an English language tube was opened or unit carton was opened and the tube was taken out and a Japanese sticker was put on the back of that tube. The tube was put back into the carton. It was glued down, it was taped, and then a Japanese sticker was put on the outside. And just the cost and the time that went into making that happen, to sit on the shelf and then not to be a particularly attractive product after all of that rework had happened to it, was just the moment where we said, look, this just has to change. And that led to a real step change in consumers' ability to understand the brand, to engage with our products, to understand the benefits of it. And fantastically now, some of those oral care products are our top selling units in Japan.
Wow.
So
Fantastic.
really exciting
Phenomenal
project.
I cannot wait to check out these oral care products and see what you've done to, I can imagine it, but exactly what it is that you guys have done to make it.
But it's not just slapping on a label. And
that's right.
It's just, there's so much more in this, and it's a long game. You've really just played this long game, and look where it's got you now, and to such a successful, and you seem so happy. I feel like your market in Japan is a happy place to be. Alice, is it joyful for you? And, what do you love about working with Japan?
Yeah, well, I echo a lot of what Hamish just said. I think ecostore has a lot to offer in the sense that I think we are filling a gap in the Japanese market. In Japan, there's always so much going on in consumer culture. There's always the new and there's always the futuristic. And, ecostore, being an international brand, that's really, really appealing and alluring for a lot of people who want sort of international products. You've got your people who, go to Costco every week and they want to find these international brands. And, we're not quite in Costco yet in Japan, but, we're still in the same sort of field where we're an international brand coming in. So the fact that it's kind of foreign, international, luxurious, premium, that's always going to please one crowd. But I guess one interesting sort of research for me was, if that can cater to a crowd, to one sort of crowd, how do we reach the people who aren't as interested in, international brands? How do we reach a crowd who completely trust made in Japan products? Because if there's one thing about Japanese products is that they're very, very good and they're very trusted by the people in Japan. One of the things that I tackled once I started working for ecostore was, I guess, our brand slogan. So our slogan is safer for you, or the long one is safer for you, your family, and the world. And that's very, very, direct, simple if you're just reading it in English. But on many occasions, I found it really hard to translate the word safer, because I guess safer from like a definitive perspective, you could use the word anshin or anzen, but they're all quite rigid and hard and very orderly. And we wanted to offer something a bit more wholesome, and something that's a little bit less like security and more like family friendly as of image. And so, we spoke with our Japanese team and said, hey, can we find a way we want to keep safer for you because that's part of the English logo, that's part of our picture, but how can we better communicate the essence of safer for you to people who can't understand what safer for you means? And so we sat down with the Japanese team, and over a couple of weeks, over a couple of months, we came up with a slogan that goes "Marugoto yasashi mainichi" for a more wholesome or for a more fulfilling every day. And what I found really beautiful about that is that, it doesn't just speak to the products that we make, but it kind of inspires a lifestyle. It's not so much about buy our stuff. It's not it's safer for you works in the context of New Zealand because we're all about being natural and safe and offering, a really, really lovely place to live. But in Japan, you want to be able to give that extra oomph because Japan already is safe. There's so much trust in there. So what difference can we make in that area? So when Japan came up with the Marugoto Yasashi, Marugoto means wholesome, it means holy. And I found that really, really beautiful. And yasashi can also mean safe. It can mean gentle. It is a very much used word in Japanese commercials, but I guess it's used because it carries meaning, and that's the impact it has. But so yeah, safer for you. Translating safer for you was very much how do we sell or how do we inspire an essence or a lifestyle? How does the ecostore belong in one person's life? Because we're not just about product, we're about making a better world. But using the slogan was definitely one entry into creating a fuller meaning. And what our Japanese team did, which we don't have in New Zealand, is that they created category slogans as well. So your home care, your personal care, and your baby care, and your ultra sensitive, so all the different products that we have, they created kind of mini slogans and taglines as well, so they could actually communicate what every category means. And that's to save, because people aren't going to read the stickers, or they're not going to have time to read everything that's on pack. But if we're able to give that little glimpse of what we want to fulfill or what we want to achieve in this person's life or in the consumer's life, Japan really brought that to life for us. And we have that on packaging as well. That's
Can you give us an example of one? Like, for example, the baby care or whatever.
When they actually delivered them, the team delivered them, it really struck us just how poetic and how beautiful they were. They'd done all of this work, and we'd been involved in the process, but it was initially around discussing the challenges and talking about this colder, harder, scientific idea of safety as it translated into Japanese. And when they presented it to us, it was really striking, and it was all done in-house by the team there with input from our side in New Zealand. But it was quite remarkable how beautiful it was, and we were so happy with it. It's such an art to do this in another language and to translate these concepts. And yeah, it's something that we would really love to be able to take to other cultures and other markets. We've just got this beautiful example of how well it's been done in Japan.
For our home care, so that includes, our laundry and our kitchen ranges and our cleaning, we went with 普段汚れは自然で洗おう. So let's use the power of nature to clean or to purify every day.
Okay, you've got me. Keep going.
Very poetic.
Yeah.
But it really does carry the essence because, ecostore is about, harmonizing with nature. And it's what can we find in a natural world that can be part of our, at home lives. And they just found a way to our team in Japan found a way to beautifully capture that essence. If we go for our baby care, 香りと育む優しい記憶. So it means gentle memories raised in fragrance. So I think fragrance is a very, very big thing in Japan, and I think this obviously highlights it. Our baby range is lavender. It's very, very soft. I guess they want to associate raising a newborn with a really positive or a very soothing fragrance. I don't think fragrance is a much of a big deal in New Zealand, at least not as much as it is in Japan. So one of my favorite ones is for our ultra sensitive, which is Marugoto Free no Kokochiyosae. So a comfort that is completely free. So I think the free is a bit of a pun because it's it's ultra sensitive because it's fragrance free. It's free of any other harsher chemicals. So to say that but it's also the free of being completely free. You're feeling you have no worries in the world.
Yeah, which people who are ultra sensitive don't have. That's great.
Yeah. So it's again very, very inspiring. And our last one is for our personal care, which is 大自然の潤いを毎日の肌へ. So take what is outside the great outdoors and put it into a little bottle, and here it is for your skin. Here it is for you. And so it's very grand, it's very visual, these quotes, but I think we don't have any of these in New Zealand. We just have the safer for you, and obviously that does enough in New Zealand to get the point through. But in Japan, they came up with these, I don't know, like just rainbows and cupcakes and unicorns and all these beautiful slogans for
waterfalls
all
and
products.
majestic mountains, and
It's all of that, isn't it? Yeah, it just
certainly
paints a picture in your mind.
You feel it. They are beautiful. Well done, Team Japan and ecostore. How amazing!
That's brilliant. Oh my goodness! Yeah.
Oh wow!
I want to go and get some. Yeah, because I need some ecostore
I'm going to go
in my life.
Ecostore near me. I know it's definitely the Ebisu store, but that is just beautiful, and it just shows you how much value and you can have with your team in Japan, especially selecting them in a really lovely way, yasashi, kind and gentle way, so that they are exhibiting all of those beautiful qualities with everything they do.
I think that yasashi is so important in Japan. Japan is a country where life can be hard, like really busy, full on. You work really hard in Japan. So people are looking for yasashi. And that's why we see all the softness and characters and things that we see. People looking for that. So your team nailed it with the yasashi in there, and the marugoto yasashi.
Because it's
right.
It's sort of gentle and safe, but it also can mean easy, right? Not kantan kind of, it's really simple, but it's a yasashi kind of way of saying, it's gentle on the way that I can help myself do it quite easily. It's got that meaning as well. Yasashi is one of the most wonderful words you could ever have used.
It's a very versatile word,
Love it.
Nailed it. Right. So
we must give a hat tip there to Ryoko, mustn't we? Former marketing colleague who's now in the United States, but she was the architect of this project, and it was a big one, and she absolutely nailed it. So there you go, Ryoko.
Yeah, no, good. Big shout out to her. It was I'm glad that we were able to, finally we had something that could, bring Safer for You to life. Because I felt like for a good amount of time, I was always trying to think of a translation for Safer for You, but every time the translation was different because I just couldn't find what the truth or what the essence of it meant. And so when we threw this product to Japan and they gave us not just one option, but all, 6 slogans, that really captures and embodies, all of what ecostore represents. Now we can use this to appeal to a greater market in Japan and talk to people who are maybe more hesitant to buy international products, but hey, we've got the messaging there, so we can finally communicate with them.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a bit more then about what is this value of being made in New Zealand as opposed to Japan?
Sure. So being made in New Zealand does offer a great deal of value to a large group of consumers in Japan, but it's different to the rest of Asia, where there is a lot of value about being made elsewhere, being made in a place like New Zealand, which has a lot of trust and integrity, perhaps through food, through infant formula at a particular time. Being made in Japan has its own value of trust and security and safety. So being made in New Zealand is important, but it's not the be all and end all. We label our products on the front of pack as made in New Zealand. We use things like the Furmark icon, especially on our e-commerce. We do bring that to life. But some of the more difficult things to do are to bring that emotive set of values to life to a Japanese consumer. What does being made in New Zealand really offer them? And one of the things that I believe it was the New Zealand Story did, NZTE throughout COVID, it was part of the COVID response of New Zealand, was the Made with Care campaign. And that was something that was a Rakuten e-commerce platform initiative, and brought together a big group of New Zealand exporters into Japan and internationally as well, and it really dug into the values of what being made in New Zealand offered to consumers. And it was a really natural fit for ecostore. Talked about about provenance, about place, about being made with care and integrity, and putting people in behind it. And a lot of those values were really central to ecostore, to our brand values. So it was a wonderful campaign, and it went on for best part of 18 months, I believe, and was really successful, not just for ecostore, but for a number of other brands, where consumers in Japan could experience quite a wide range of products that were made in New Zealand that shared these values all on one single platform. So that was a wonderful campaign, and it took that idea of being made in New Zealand to another level. Made in New Zealand, but with love and care and provenance. So
yeah, that's interesting that, in Japan you're competing against Made in Japan, which is highly, highly trusted. Yeah,
that's right.
Made in New Zealand, what does that mean? Yeah.
What value does it have? That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, there's always the novelty factor that Alice has spoken to earlier for a significant group of consumers that are looking for that foreign, they're looking for that offshore. But the challenge is to communicate to a much larger group of consumers who might not be looking for made in New Zealand for their fabric softener or their toothpaste or their baby products, but because to them being made in Japan is the highest order virtue of provenance. So you have to go further.
So for you, Alice, how did you find that whole experience of the Made with Care campaign and how it affected the people that you were connecting with in Japan?
I think Japan is so much about care. I think more recently, looking at in like a bigger picture kind of way, Japan is very, very known for things like omotenashi, particularly looking after people, I think. As opposed to people and planet, I think Japan definitely prioritizes people, but, and they're very, very good at that. Care from kind of two different cultural standpoints. I was trying to look at what does care mean in New Zealand and what does care mean in Japan. And I guess within the ecostore brand, we talk a lot about sustainability. And in New Zealand, when you talk about care, I think ideas like, maybe manakitanga and kaitiakitanga come to mind, that, it's about caring for people and caring for the planet, caring for land and ocean and sky. Whereas when I see care in Japan, because I don't mean it negatively, because I think it's wonderful that Japan is so people-centric and they care for people. But, I walked into a convenience store, which I'll leave unnamed, and I remember seeing individual bananas wrapped in plastic bags, and I was thinking, well, doesn't banana skin serve that purpose? Isn't the banana skin supposed to protect the banana? And this is added layer. So I think care comes from a very, very humble place in Japan, but I think it's a different brand or a different idea. Or it's almost like a different color in Japan. In New Zealand, care is about being green. It's all encapsulating, whereas I think Japan is very much about harmony, but to me, it feels like it's always people first.
Yes, definitely.
And I think what ecostore can offer is an opportunity for people to care not just about people. My favorite thing about, care and ecostore is that, just by maybe using one of our laundry products that has all natural ingredients in it, that's been made from recycled plastic and, sugar plastic, you're not just caring for your child or your daughter or your family that's right in front of you, but you're actually down the line caring for something that isn't going to go into landfill, that's going to have another life cycle. And it's this broader sort of ripple effect. That to me, that's what Made with Care taught me. And I think that's so much of what, looking at all the different types of products that were in, with the Made with Care campaign and other New Zealand sort of central campaigns, is that we don't just put the quality there for the people to enjoy, but it's the quality that benefits the producers and everything that supports it.
Awesome. It's interesting you mentioned the banana and the plastic, right? So I went to Gilman Super, where they sell New Zealand grass-fed butter. Yay! But it's in a plastic bag. Like, it's, how you buy butter in that it's wrapped, right? And you just pick it up and it's just wrapped. But in Japan, it's been put into a plastic bag and sealed for the food safety aspect, right? So no person in Japan wants to buy butter that's just wrapped in a piece of paper. Yuck. Which we do every day in New Zealand. We don't even think about it.
We've found our ecostore bottles in different countries wrapped in plastic, and it's such it's a difficult thing to see. It really is.
So what future trends are you seeing in Japan?
think one of the biggest things I'm seeing at the moment is SDGs. All those colored little boxes that, the UN created. Those are on posters, they're on pin badges. You don't see much of that in New Zealand because I think sustainability is not really a trend in New Zealand. It's just automatically integrated into our life. But I think for Japan, it's wonderful to see that SDGs is finally kind of becoming a buzzword because it means that there's a lot more attention to it. But also, we don't want SDGs to just be a trend. Saving the planet can't just be hot for 1 month because, what's going to happen afterwards. It can't be, it needs to be something that's ongoing and ongoing for future generations. SDGs is a wonderful way to kind of bring focus to certain areas, especially from, Japan's very kind of orderly. They have a lot of, categories. And I think Japan's quite known for being, homogenous and being quite black and white with their system, whether it's sort of business or education, everything's quite formal. If we were to grab the attention of certain SDGs, Japanese people, I think, will listen. I think Japan is a very, very trendy place in the way that a lot of people will come into one trend and then next week there'll be a new trend and the following week there's a new trend, which I think is really, really fun. That keeps it really, really exciting. But there are certain matters in the world that can't just finish with trends. And I think looking after the planet is, one of them. So as someone that kind of sits between two cultures, I really hope that we're able to kind of keep saving the planet as a trend interesting enough so people don't get bored of it, but we also want to take the time to actually educate or inform not just consumers but everyone who comes across us that sustainability really, really matters. And whether SDGs goes out of fashion, we want people to keep their badges on if that encourages them.
Yeah.
I think a lot of schools in Japan are starting to study the SDGs, and that's really wonderful because obviously these students are going to be the future of the world. So I think we're heading in the right direction. ecostore will always be here. We're here to help you make that change in the world because we tick at least 9 of those SDGs.
Wow, great.
So yes, when we counted them, we had about 9 of them. Which is really, really awesome. So hopefully that keeps us relevant.
Wonderful to see such interest in the SDGs, isn't it? I mean, it's a framework. It provides a really good lens through which to look at sustainability, and it seems like a very Japanese thing to do, like Alice has mentioned, to look at it in such a structured way. We're having a lot of contact from various school groups that want us to speak to them in Japan, here in New Zealand, back to Japan, business groups that are coming here. We just hosted another one last week and they have another one coming up shortly, and they all want to come to New Zealand and learn about sustainability. They want to engage with businesses that are known to be doing good things in this field. So that's really heartening. You've got young children, their teachers, and you've got Japanese businessmen in blue suits and white shirts. So it's we've got the whole spread, and they're all wanting to hear these stories and engage with sustainability out of New Zealand. So if that's not trending, if it's happening on Instagram and it's happening in front of audiences, it's a wonderful thing. So we think that's something that New Zealand businesses going into Japan or looking to go in can really engage with. SDGs, how you present your sustainability story to a Japanese audience.
Alrighty. Anything else that we need to add in here?
We do. The team up there yes, we do. The team in Japan have very kindly pulled together for the Jandals in Japan listeners an e-commerce discount code. I think that we need to get product in everybody's hands, especially the Kiwi Mafia or Jandal Mafia.
Yes, there's a bit of those people around the town. Yep, definitely. What have you got for us? Tell us what's special. What are you giving us as Jandals listeners?
Well, we have a wee website called ecostore.jp, www.ecostore.jp. And on the site, we have an e-commerce store there. And if you use the code EcoJandal, one word,
hang on, that's your thinking, Hamish. That's not the Japan team. Come on.
100%. 100%.
EcoJandal, got it.
EcoJandal.
Brilliant.
EcoJandal, there will be a tasty treat waiting for you.
Oh, lovely. Thank you so much. Our Jandals who are actually in Japan will love to take advantage of that and yeah, hopefully share that with other Japanese consumers as well. That would be brilliant. Yeah, more people using
Absolutely.
ecostore products. I
Absolutely. Now, there's
think most
plenty
people
of,
have a chance to use
oh,
ecostore
great.
products. Yeah.
I think there's free shipping as well if you get over a level of, I think it's around 3,000 yen. So it's pretty
Oh,
reasonable
Yeah.
to
easy.
have it delivered to your door. Yeah.
Absolutely
Yeah.
brilliant. My face is hurting from the amount of smiling I've been doing during this episode. It's been absolutely wonderful. Congratulations to both of you, Hamish and Alice, on being completely successful Jandals in Japan and for telling us this amazing eco store story journey today. We've absolutely loved it, and welcome again to your joy for the future in this land of the rising sun.
Thank you very much. It's been an honor to be on the show. Arigato
Thank you
gozaimasu.
so much. Arigatou gozaimasu. Thank you so much.
What a fantastic interview with Hamish and Alice representing EcoStore today.
Absolutely.
What was your favourite thing from
Oh,
the
so
takeaway
many
from
in
that?
there. I really, from Alice, I really loved her idea of not forcing culture upon each other. So New Zealand not forcing onto Japan, or Japan not telling New Zealand what to do, being sort of okay with both and understanding. I mean, that came through so big on the branding and getting the labeling and explaining all of that. I loved that intricate discussion we had
Yeah.
about how they did that for each product, right? That kind of thing, getting the culture right for Japan for the New Zealand products.
Yeah. What works in New Zealand doesn't necessarily work in Japan. Some fantastic examples with the crane on the box and the white crane being a bit of a flop and
Wow.
realizing that that wasn't the way to go, but also realizing that they wouldn't necessarily get the this is not a good idea answer from their team in Japan, and that yeah, what a tricky situation
Wow.
that they navigated there. Wow, that's so
Amazing.
interesting
And
to
it-
hear that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that reference to having the local team so well set up and so well bonded together, the team that are working at EcoStore and also the partner they're working with, and how that came about magically with that introduction through from New Zealand, that just blew me away. As an amazing thing that we could underrate, right? We often get
Yeah.
so many inquiries from people. You and I get them daily.
Yep.
Help me with this, tell me about this, and you just don't know where that magic could be hiding within one of those emails that come through. That was just phenomenal.
Yeah. What an amazing thing to come out of an email. Yeah.
And then the other thing was, I guess I had hashtag retail detail on my notes. It was like, they talked a lot about the importance of detail in Japan, especially, and also the hard yards that it takes, right? 4 or 5 years to build this story and get there with the, getting the details correct and right. And having done the hard work, now is a little bit easier and they can actually enjoy this process too, even more. So I thought that was really important as well.
Retail details. I think like EcoStore is better as a company for having come to Japan, don't you think? From their experience
like
of
it.
it seems like that the company has improved, probably across everything as a company for having entered the Japanese market. So what an amazing result to
Wow.
have come from that, I feel.
Who would have thought that in those early days when it was feeling perhaps a little hard? How do we do this? We've got to get things right. There's so much detail. Do we really need it? And then working through all of that to become, a flagship
the
country
refill,
to be dealing with. The
Yeah.
refill thing? Oh, wow.
yeah, the number one refill retailer in Japan, pretty much, right? You heard it here first.
So exciting. And oh gosh, thank you so much to the team. It's been fantastic speaking. There's so many other gems there. I hope people have got their books and writing down things. I mean, the value that they can get out of Japan, and also just making sure that you're not, the values are different, right? And that was brought out again by the sustainability aspects, SDGs. It's different. It's embedded in New Zealand and it's a different concept in Japan. There was so much in that. And I love that they gave us a coupon code. Yay
yeah.
for the online store.
Go and check
Well,
that
I'm
one
going
out.
to go and use it, aren't you?
Oh, I am. Yay. Yeah, well,
I'm wondering what the tasty treat
you can wander down the street, well, to Ebisu, but a
Kind
little
of,
bit further
yes.
away
Yes.
up here. So this is fantastic. And yeah, wool wash will be ordered. That is for sure. Yeah, all of that.
Yeah, all
Great
of our
stuff
wool
they have
products.
there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, EcoStore.
Thank you, EcoStore. Alrighty. Well, see you again on the next episode coming soon. Cheers.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you check out our guests' links in the show notes.
This podcast is brought to you today by Catherine O'Connell Law and Pod Launch with Jane. If you have a great story you think should be on the show, come and find us on LinkedIn or Instagram. We'd love to hear from you. See you next time.
Matane!